Hi, Julie Powell here. Today I'm going to have a look at doing dodge and burn in Photoshop. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this. Obviously there is the dodge and burn tool that you do have in Photoshop, but I don't really like using this particular tool. You have to either put it on your original layer, or I would suggest making a duplicate layer and doing your dodge and burn on that direct. You would need to bring your exposure down a little bit, but it still does not, it's a little too easy to make mistakes, I feel, and it is quite destructive. So I don't really like doing that particular tool. I think there are easier ways to do it. So I'm going to show you two different ways, one of which is using curves and another one is with a 50% grey layer. Now you can use the dodge and burn in the 50% grey layer, but I think that the curves layer is better. Now I've got two that I've already done. Just to show you what it is. Now I do have some actions that I do use to create this, but if I am creating them from scratch, all I am doing is I'm creating two curves layers. I'm going to hit Control I to invert both of those. I'm going to rename one of them dark and rename the other one light. Now what I'm going to do in the dark one, I'm going to go to the curve and I'm going to bring the shadows down. Doesn't really matter where, just a little bit at least. And on the light one, go into the curves and bring the light up. The reason it doesn't really matter is because this is totally non-destructive. You can come in and you can change these if you require. Now all you need to do is then come in with your brush on the black layer mask and paint in where you want your highlights and shadows. Now you can leave your brush at 100% and you can paint in your highlights. Now you can do everything on the one layer, so you can do your face, your eyes, your hands, your body, everything on the same layer. It's just a matter of, if you don't want it quite so much, you can reduce the opacity of the brush, but if you want to do everything on separate layers, you can. Now I'm just coming in here and just putting in my highlights in the hair, her face, oops, her lips. Now see where that is probably quite strong. I'm going to drop my brush down to 30%, make it a little bit smaller, maybe increase to 50%, and I can put my highlights in on her lips. Then if I drop down to the dark layer, what I'm doing is I am going to put in my shadows. Now again, that is probably too dark. I can either come in and I can bring that up, or I can leave it quite dark and I can reduce the opacity of the layer, and I can do it that way. So there's two different ways that you can do it. You can come in, you can add in all your shadows, and because you are only painting in the shadows on the dark layer and the highlights on the light layer, it is less likely to make any mistakes, and you can actually be a little less fussy in playing around with your dodge and burn. Don't forget to just zoom in if you need to, so that you can see various areas of your image a little bit better. Okay, so that's using the curve layer method. The next method that you can use is using a 50% grey layer. Now, I find the easiest way to do that is Control, Shift and N, and that will bring up the new layer panel. If you're on a Mac, I'm assuming it's Command, Shift and N. If you change the mode to overlay, it will prompt you to fill overlay with a neutral color 50%. Just click on that, leave it at 100% and click OK. And what it does, it gives you this grey overlay. Because there's nothing painted on it, you can't actually see it in overlay mode until you start painting on it. Now, you can do one of two things. You can come in with the dodge and burn if you wish to here. I would set the burn tool to only painting the shadows at about 10 to 20%, and I would use the dodge tool to only painting the highlights, probably again at 10 to 20%, and you can paint them in and just work gradually, maybe even increase it up to 20%. You still have to be a little bit careful because of your painting. You could end up painting in areas that are not actually highlights as such. If we were to turn that back to normal, you can see where I have dodged those areas in. You can, of course, drop the opacity of that particular layer. If you're finding it is too strong, you can do burn on the same layer, or you could choose to do two grey layers and have one as burn and one as dodge. The other thing that you can do, if I just remove that, is put in Control Shift New and put in another new grey overlay, and you can come in with the brush tool and you can either paint in white or black for your shadows and highlights, dropping your opacity down again. So if you were to come in with white, and you can paint in white where your highlight layers are, and because it's on overlay mode, it will just pick up what you have painted in. Again, you can put your black and your white on the same layer. So I'm coming in here and I'm going to put my shadows in, which are way too strong. So I'm going to drop that down to say 10%. Again, when you are using this method, it's really easy to paint where you shouldn't be painting. So it's quite easy to put darks in highlight areas and light in shadow areas. So you do need to be careful where you are painting. But using this method, using the X key, you can quickly toggle backwards and forwards between highlight and shadow. So you can quickly and easily move through your piece doing it this way. But you just need to be careful of what you are painting in. If you find that even painting at 10% it is still strong, you can of course drop the opacity. But I do prefer painting in with the curves layer. I just find it is much quicker, it's much easier. Like I said, I have an action that I use, so this is my portrait actions, and I just click on dodge and burn. So if I take them off, click on play, and what it does is sets up two curved ones. It drops the dark one up, and the dark one down and the light one up. It renames them, it inverts them, and it gives you a little prompt to paint with a soft white brush on the layer mask to reveal highlight areas on the light layer and shadows on the dark. So using the actions is quick and easy, and it saves time, especially when it's the same thing that you're doing over and over again. Actions really can make a big difference.